Hello, and thank you for listening to Back in America. I want to take a minute to remind you that on this podcast website at backinamericathepodcast.com, you will find transcripts for each episode. You will also have links to our social media profiles. Do sign up for our newsletter. It's a great way to be alerted about all the good stuff going on at Back in America. Now, on to this episode. In July, according to the Census Bureau, nearly 25 million people reported that they have little to no confidence that they would be able to pay rent in the next month. And almost 30 million people said they didn't have enough to eat. Without federal intervention, housing experts and advocates warn of an unprecedented wave of eviction in the coming month, and one far more devastating than the 2008 crisis. Today, I'm releasing a series of 2 episodes on housing assistance. In this episode, I speak with Louise Kekulah, a woman who grew up in Liberia, Africa, moved by herself in the US as a child, had a baby, graduated from Rutgers, and now works as a counselor for families at risk of losing their children. The fact that Louise is very bright and highly driven probably explains how she managed to do so well. Yet, she said that the Housing Initiative of Princeton has changed her life and allowed her to bounce back and secure a better career. You will hear Louise mention Carol. In part 2, I then speak with Carol Golden, the chair of Housing Initiatives of Princeton, and also a member of the Affordable Housing Board of Princeton. Here is episode 1, Louise Kekulah.
If you're tired of arguing with strangers on the internet, try talking with one of them in real life.
Welcome to Back in America, the podcast.
Thank you so much for accepting to share your story with me and with Back in America.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. When I joined HIP, I graduated from undergrad, and then I had a baby. Right now, I work for a Center Integrated Health. I'm a counselor.
I wonder if you can take me back to a very, very old story for you. Before you moved to the US, I know you moved when you were 7. Do you have any memories of your country, of Liberia?
Very little. I have very little memories of my country. I do recall that there was a war going on back there. And so in order to escape the war, my family stayed. Like my mom stayed. My entire family stayed except for me. So we had, my mom had brought me over with one of her friends through a refugee program. Back then, I don't know if you heard of DACA.
Yeah.
Back then, it was really easy to come into the United States, unlike now. My memory of back home is very fond, honestly.
Yeah, what? Tell me more.
So I left my family. We went to, where did we go? I think we went to Ivory Coast because we were there for quite some time. And I was when I left my mom, I want to say I was about 5 or 6. Because we came to this country February, I remember it was February 14th. I'll never forget it because it's always Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2001. So I think I've been here for about 19 years. So when we went to Ivory Coast, I was probably there for a few months, and then we came on a plane. And when I landed here, it was actually my first time seeing snow. It's like it doesn't snow, it doesn't snow back home. So it was a culture shock for me. Honestly, it didn't take me a while to adapt 'cause, like, I know, like, once I started school, like, once I 'cause I actually used to live in Ewing. So when we first got here no, when we first got here, we were in Hamilton because I attended Greenwood Elementary School, and, there I got a lot of help with, like, because my English wasn't really well, so I got, like, a lot of ESL help and things like that, but I was always bright, for lack of better words. So I've always had like this mindset of just like striving and not giving up. So not being able to like I had difficulties understanding the teachers. They try to put me back a grade. Um but that didn't happen because I was able to just like adapt. So
Hmm.
like I would go home and take the extra time to just like study. And then I remember just being envious of other kids in the classroom and things like that. So it didn't take me a while to adapt at all um, to the American culture.
And so your mom moved back to Liberia, or did she stay with you?
She's no, my mom stayed. My mom has always she's back in Liberia.
So what happened? Because you moved here, were you on your own, or
I was actually with a friend of my mom, a very good friend of hers.
was it tough for you to be alone at 7?
Yeah. But back then, it wasn't as tough back then as it is now, to be honest. Now it's really tough, but back then I always had that like moral support. I had support as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I can genuinely say that I did. So it wasn't like, and my mom did really well in terms of communication. So imagine from 7 up until now, like she kept in contact with me and she still does. So that helped a lot too.
Yeah. So you just said now it's tough. Tell
Yeah.
me, why is it tough?
Um, I would say, with a baby and lack of support, definitely needing my mom
I see.
a lot more now.
Yeah. So that brings us to that situation, right? The baby. But maybe before we get there, I wonder if you can take me back to high school and then moving on to college. That was a good time for you, right? You did very well.
Yeah, high school. So I started at Ewing High School. I finished ninth grade there, but then I had to leave to go to New Brunswick. And then I graduated from Trenton High School. And I actually graduated number 4 in my class. So
Wow.
I was top 5.
And then you went to college.
Yeah, then I went to Rutgers. I did a double major. So I graduated with criminal justice and psychology. And right now I'm actually getting my master's at Cairn University for counseling. So I want to be a therapist. Senior year was when I found out that I was gonna be a mom. It was spring semester. I think I found out in February because there's like a clinic there. So that's when that was when I guess my entire world just shifted um for the better, honestly.
Yeah, I was not expecting that because that brought a lot of worries also.
Yeah, it was. Initially it was, but then again my mom, my mom was the first person I actually told about the baby, and she actually encouraged me to have the baby. She's very religious, like she's very religious. So having an abortion was just something, it was just not an option for her.
Hmm.
And so and I always remember my mom's words she practically told me, she said, this baby is going to be the best thing that has ever happened to you. And like, I can't read the future, and neither can she. So it's kind of like I was getting myself set up for something like the unexpected. But I just I maintain my faith. I would say that I genuinely I got a lot closer to the Lord. And even though I had no idea, because I was 23, I had no idea about about a baby or anything like that. But, I was willing to go ahead and take that risk, I guess.
Oh, I can hear the baby.
That's the baby. Go ahead. That is him. How come I'm on the phone? I'll be back. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's quite all right. I myself might be interrupted anytime, so we know what it's like. So you were about to graduate, and that baby arrived. What did you do? You had to find housing. You had to.
Yeah, I did. So originally, I was at my cousin's house, but the environment just wasn't for me. So I ended up staying with a friend who I was renting like a room there. But then it was kind of so I was there. There wasn't any baby at the time. So I'm staying at my friend's house and just working. Because at that time I was actually working at Quick Check. So I'm just working and just trying to secure fundings, a lot of fundings, in preparation for a baby. I had the baby and I remember just feeling so empty. I don't want to say it was like postpartum depression or any of that stuff, but I just I genuinely was not happy with my living conditions. I just wasn't happy. It was kind of like from day one, I knew that I needed to provide a decent living for my son. So, and my mindset was always, I got to give him a better life than I had. In the midst of, still working, still being a mom and things like that, I started reaching out to people for help. So this is where HIP comes in, because I was just pretty much applying for a lot of programs. But one thing, I'm big on education, big on school and things like that. So for me, it was kind of Princeton was it. For me, it was kind of I need to go to a place where the school district is good for my son. And I came across HIP. I had no idea what it was, but it's just I was just filling out a bunch of applications. And then when things got really, really bad, I started practically harassing Miss Carol.
And sorry, how bad was it, and why was it bad?
It was just it was a lot of turmoil with where I was living, because now we're talking a baby's there. There was no heat, so she stopped turning on the heat. So now it's kind of I'm in a room, a little space with a baby and no heat. So it's
The
just
landlord turned off the.
Yeah.
She didn't want the baby there, or what?
I guess so, because a newborn baby, there's a lot of demands, with the noise level, and things like that. So I guess it's I don't know, but I do believe that was one of the reasons. And just but my thing was, I could have left, but I wouldn't have been able to afford it. My income was just not.
How much were you making?
About $960
an hour?
I was not making much at all. About 200 a week.
Wow.
Yes.
For you and Malcolm.
For Malcolm, yes. For me and Malcolm. So it's just I couldn't take it. I did Princeton community housing. I did a lot of housing applications. And then I kept hearing the same thing, takes time, there's a wait list and things like that. So when I called when I sent my application in to HIP. I got a call. I think I got a call from like Miss Carol, and I think she was just telling me that the place was like filled up or something like that, and just be something like that. It was kind of like the call that I got. She gave me hope. So then I started reaching out to her like a lot more, and just like out of desperation. Um, and I don't know, something must have clicked, because next thing you know, I went for an interview, because they do like their initial interview and things like that. 2 weeks later, she called me and said congratulations, and I literally moved into the apartment. I want to say March 1st of like 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So from September to March, that's not really very long when it comes to like this housing thing, because
No, it's
people wait
good. Yeah.
years.
Being in a new housing like that, what difference did it make to you?
Oh, what? It made a significant. It was, oh my gosh. It's I. I mean, I was already responsible, but it was just so surreal to me, and like I knew that this was an opportunity of a lifetime. So for me, it was just feeling secure, you know, not feeling like I have to walk on tippy toes in somebody else's home. I was able to get a lot of support from them. So I had a counselor. I remember Miss Glenda. And then I had she was my liaison at the time. Career development. So I think when I got into HIP, that's when literally things just started moving forward for me in a positive direction. Because then it was kind of like I went on from quick check to a decent job, beneficial enough to get my feet wet a little bit, give me that experience that I needed. And then once I got that job, I secured it for at least a year.
Which was what?
It was at a halfway house. Yeah, I was a program counselor there. And then I went back to the career coach, and she pretty much just helped me with my resume building skills. Like I've been able to network a lot with like different people, which has been really beneficial to me. Once she helped me, improve my resume and interview skills and things like that, I secured an even better job with what I do now.
So tell us about what you do now.
I work for Family Preservation Services in Mercer County. I do intensive in-home counseling for families at risk of losing their children. So interventions that I do is just helping them become more stabilized in the home, so that they're able to keep their children and not have them removed by DCP&P.
Wow.
Yeah,
Do you think that your own personal history help you better understand those people?
definitely. Yeah. And that's
In
why
which way?
so there's a fine line that you have to draw in terms of boundaries. And I never go and tell them my story. But when I hear their story, I can easily relate to them, which makes it easier for them to relate to me. And it's crazy because I just had a conversation with one of my supervisors. She pretty much told me, she said, "You're really good at what you do." And that really meant a lot to me, because this is something that I'm passionate about. Like for me, it's kind of like someone paved the way for me. So paving the way for others is just my goal right now. Which is why I got into the whole social work field. And even now, like I'm still, even though technically I graduated from HIP, they have been of like so much help to me that I still maintain like communications with them. And even now, like I have like Miss Rebecca just reached out to me with an opportunity of a lifetime. Like I I'm filled with so much joy just talking to you about this right now, because she called me and she was like, congratulations, because I got into like this program. It's called the Women Unlimited Organization for Mentoring, Education, and Networking. So even like stuff like that I'm still getting. I just, like, the blessings is just, it keeps coming. My mom words were true because Malcolm, I feel like he came with so much blessing. I know that they're preparing me to be able to provide a living for my son, which is something that I've always dreamed of.
You come from Liberia, you come from Africa. How do you experience this country being black, but you're not a black American, you are a black from Africa in this country? I mean, you are sort of in between culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Big time. Um, that's a good question. I try not to allow the outside the outside world, for lack of better words, intervene with the goals that I've set for myself. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Sort of. So you try to hide out all those racial tensions
Yes,
because you want to
basically.
focus on your goal, which is to
Yeah,
build a career and and to build a good life for Malcolm.
yeah. Like I've dealt with, and it, I think it's interesting that you say this because mo- moving to Princeton has not always been easy. I've had my shares of um, racism, for lack of better words, but it's the mindset that I've had, and I actually talked to Miss Glenda about it, is that I've worked so hard to get to where I'm at right now. I'm not gonna allow anyone to try to dictate um my outcome. So I'm not gonna let people try to push me out of my dreams, you know? So for me it's just tunnel vision. Pretty much. But I do address it when I see fit. So, there was an incident with my son's school. It ended up working out in a sense that, the same support system that I have with HIP, they were able to reach out to a professional who was then able to assist me with the situation.
Hmm.
Um, and it worked out.
And what is America to you?
America is giving me the head start. It's pushing me to a place where I can just pretty much build up my character to take something back home um, for other children. You know, I feel like, and I feel like I'm here for a purpose. Like, I know it sounds like a cliche, but I genuinely, because I just find it unbelievable how things have just been working out um, for me and for Malcolm and I, that I feel like there's a purpose for all of this. So it's just soaking everything in. Right now I'm kind of like a sponge. I'm getting all the education that I need because a part of being like a therapist or striving to be a therapist is, I feel like, mental health is really important. So it's just going back home and things like, abuse and things like that, and taking that back with me and trying to just stabilize other children. So
And
I guess, hmm
sorry, and when you say going back home, you mean home in Liberia?
yeah.
Is that what you want to do ultimately?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely want to, and I've been planning because, bear in mind, since I came here in 2001, I have not seen my family. So what I'm gonna do is, I want for Malcolm to get to an age where, his memories serves him right. Because when I go back home, obviously he has to meet his grandma and his uncle and his aunt. So I want him to get to an age where, it'll be good enough for him to go and experience my side, my culture, and hopefully he can take something from that. So I'm definitely planning within the next year or two to go back because I need to meet my mom. Like,
Well,
I haven't seen my mom in forever.
I'm sure you do. But where do you plan to settle? In the US or over there?
So I want to travel back and forth. And people say I'm crazy for this, but it's kind of like I can't just abandon America because America gave me that um stabilization, I guess. And so, but I can't, I can never forget where I've come from. So it's kind of like maybe I can build a home back back home where I can just travel back and forth, go on vacations and stuff, and just experience my roots too.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you for that. Do you have any, and that will be my last question, do you have any advice for people going through tough time?
Yes. Stay true to yourself. Just know that the storm does not last forever. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Looking back at your own experience, would you do anything differently?
No. No.
Thank you. That's
Thank
clear.
you. You too. Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this first episode on housing assistance. Now make sure you listen to episode 2 with Carol Golden.